Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I learned to take accountability for my life. So I'm going to talk about this topic because I'm doing 7 days of personal shares. We get a lot of questions to our customer service inbox or on comments on YouTube, sort of about like personal perspectives and how I learned and grew and different things. So I figured what I would do is share some of the most important lessons that I kind of went through in my life, and share from more of a personal context, because I know it can be a great resource for learning, but also something kind of like interesting to follow along and hear in more of like a story-like format. So this has been a really, really powerful one for me. And I wasn't always somebody who took a lot of accountability for things, to be quite honest. I definitely grew up as somebody who blamed a lot, as somebody who felt like the victim of life a lot. And I want to be really clear about this. Like, I truly believe that we can be victimized by situations. Like, of course, somebody can be, and trigger warning, but somebody can be assaulted, or somebody can be physically hurt, or there can be a situation where somebody is the victim of something. But the harsh reality of life, and I think if we don't get this one right, if we don't get this like lesson or teaching right, it's the greatest injustice, even more than the original event actually occurring. But the harsh reality of life is that when you're victimized by something, it's not your fault, but it is only your responsibility to heal from. And what I found in my personal life is, because I felt like I was the victim of things and felt like I went through a good bit of trauma and at a young age, and it wasn't fair, and I had all these sort of stories about myself in that context, I was outsourcing my ability to move through it. I felt like because I was the victim, it was therefore not my responsibility. And what the greatest injustice is, in my opinion, of when we're victimized by events, is that when we are the victim of an experience, it imprints the subconscious mind. And then what happens? So let's say, for example, somebody gets robbed. And let's say that you go through that experience, and then it creates this imprint, this feeling like you are unsafe. Until you heal from that, and only you can really do the work to get there. You can get support and mentorship and therapy and counseling and coaching and resources and courses. You can get whatever path for assistance. But until you do that inner work, you carry that with you over and over and over again. So you go through this event of being unsafe once, but then that story lives within you, and you feel unsafe in your own body, in your own neighborhood, in your own home, in your own relationships, in your own skin, every single day, over and over and over again. And that's the true injustice, in my opinion, of being victimized by events, is that you're the victim once, but until you take responsibility, you're the victim thousands of times more. And if you were victimized by something in your childhood, something from like your parents, right? Then you often, I joke with people sometimes, I say, mom and dad are still running your brain on autopilot, right? If they made you feel unsafe, let's say, then you're carrying the story of you being unsafe maybe into your 50s. And now here you are, and they're still in charge. And so for me, this lesson came about through basically being a teenager, being in school in the US as a Canadian, paying out of state tuition, mostly trying to run from my problems back home in Canada, thinking, oh, I'll live in a new country, and not being able to really make ends meet, and not really being able to pay properly for courses, and really struggling to like pay my rent and for food, and getting really frustrated and feeling really resentful, and just feeling like, oh my gosh, like I have to just go to school part-time for a little bit because I can't afford to keep going ahead. And then I remember one day getting like a parking ticket and feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this parking ticket? How am I going to kind of like put these different things together? And just getting so mad at my past, so mad at like everything that had happened before me, and feeling like I have no support, and I try to help everybody else, and I'm not getting looked out for, and I'm forced to pay out of state tuition, and just all these things. And for some reason, I don't know what the reason was, but in that moment, and I was already kind of on a growth journey at this point and doing some inner work, and but the very early days and stages of it. And I kind of realized, like, okay, well, when I'm blaming my past, I'm the only one that's suffering. So every time I'm like, oh, it's this happened in my past and this happened, and then I don't have any support and this and this. And you can hear, if I'm being quite transparent, I mean, a little bit of the entitlement in that, right? Like I was a kid working full time, going to school, trying to pay for full time out of state tuition, but like I mean, there's people who are way worse off in the world than me. But me at that time, that was my story, right? And we all have our versions of that. I had many other versions of that too, but like my story of there was deeper roots to it too, to be fair. Like I had gone through a good bit of trauma before and it had caused me to struggle with addiction. And then I was trying to get sober. And then I, had sort of like these events after event. And I'm still not sitting here justifying like my story behind it or things, but at the time, like that was kind of, those were like the roots of my story, that because I had gone through all this pain and challenge, I just was never being able to like get ahead or feel like my life could be normal. And, everything seemed to like add fuel to that fire. And I kind of realized like, okay, but I can blame going through that addiction. I can blame that I'm now in this spot where I feel like I can't just like go to school normally or do whatever it is that I want to be doing. I can blame that on everybody, but I'm the only person that suffers at the end of the day. I can blame being an addict on childhood trauma. I can blame, going through all these different things in that way. But at the end of the day, I still was the one making those choices and those decisions. And it was this like little shift at that time for me that made this massive impact. And it was this like huge, like, I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the only one that can take the responsibility. And I realized too, like, here I am years later, ruminating, getting so angry about these things that happened to me years and years before that. And I'm ruminating, I'm getting mad. And like the people that were involved in those circumstances are like living their life, doing their normal thing. And here I am, like still mad and still going back through this thing over and over and over again. And I felt, helpless. I felt powerless. I felt like I just couldn't get in a place in life where I felt safe, or like I could just get like stable enough for a long enough period of time to like move ahead with like my goals or my dreams or what I wanted to be doing. And I realized like I had blamed that, and I had really truly blamed that like incessantly for a very long period of time on everybody else. But I realized like, okay, ultimately that's actually just up to me. And so I believed this. And then I came to later learn about the impact of the subconscious mind, and how when we keep ruminating about those stories, we really have no idle thoughts, right? Every thought that we have, that we think, produces an emotional response, and actually like fires a little bit more of a stronger neural circuit in our subconscious mind. We fire and wire new neural circuits where we reinforce these things that are pre-existing. And so every time that I felt like, oh, I have no control, I'm helpless and powerless, which were big, and trapped was a huge one for me. These were big core wounds for me at the time. Every time I retold that story, re-victimized myself, replayed that sort of space of thinking and that lens that I looked through, every time I like fed into that more, I was iterating on that. And here's the really crazy kicker, right? Is that until we do in our subconscious work to actually rewire and recondition these patterns, our subconscious mind wants to maintain this comfort zone. And remember, like our conscious mind's not really the one making decisions. It's really our subconscious mind running the show. It's our subconscious and unconscious combined that are responsible for 95 to 97% of our thoughts, our feelings, our decisions, our actions. So if I believe at a subconscious level, I'm this trapped, helpless, powerless person, and I keep feeding into that narrative, telling that story again, I'm keeping it there. And then guess what's going to happen? The moment my conscious mind's on autopilot, like la, 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 not paying attention and making intentional choices, the moment I go into that, I'm going to be right back into my subconscious mind trying to keep me trapped, helpless, and powerless, because it wants to maintain my comfort zone. Because at the end of the day, as painful as it is to feel trapped, helpless, and powerless, my subconscious mind is just wired for survival more than anything else, and just says, hey, you've been surviving this whole time though. So let's keep the same things going. Let's maintain these patterns. Let's keep putting you back into these types of situations, feeling these same things, repeating these same thought patterns, and keeping this comfort zone alive because it's familiar and thus safe. And you're more likely to stay in this state of survival. So I went through this sort of transformation of like just feeling frustrated and like angry And, there was many other things that kind of led up to that and many other things going on, but I sort of just realized like, it's not my fault, but it's only my responsibility. And if I'm willing to take responsibility fully and not tell this story about how, oh, look, again, something else to make me trapped, helpless, and powerless, and not keep feeding into that narrative, that's going to be the beginning of transformation. And as I came to learn later about the subconscious mind, I realized that was one of the most important decisions that I ever made. And I think if we look at our world right now, we have a hurting world. We've got a lot of crazy stuff going on. We have for a very long time. I think it's just like the volume's been turned up, the awareness has been turned up of many, many things over the past few years. And there's lots of people that are victimized by a lot of situations, but there's a difference between acknowledging our feelings around that, and then being for a solution in our own lives at a societal level, at a systematic level, versus being in a position where we refeed this painful story in the relationship to ourselves, because that will keep us stuck more than anything else. That will keep you wanting to stay the victim, literally, because your subconscious mind wants to stay familiar and safe. And it will keep us reiterating patterns and feeling so helpless to life, helpless to ourselves, weighed down by different experiences, frustrated, feeling alone. I mean, all these things will happen when we're not able to be like, okay, where do I move the needle? Yes, I've been victimized by these certain circumstances, situations, in whatever form or forms they took. I acknowledge, I agree. Now, how can I be for a solution at a personal level so I don't keep going through this repeated injustice over and over again, right? Like if I'm made to feel unsafe in the world, if I feel unworthy in the world, every time I see through that lens, I keep going towards experiences that will seem to reinforce that. I keep going into relationships that will seem to reinforce that. So we have to be able to realize that this is the science psychologically of what's taking place at a deeper level of mind, and do what we can to actually have compassion and break the cycle and support ourselves in changing that narrative about who we are and who we're going to be in the world. And then from that space, we can go out into the world and try to do that at more of a systematic level as well. So sort of in summary, I guess, some big changes that you can start with, and to sort of encapsulate this whole message, it's like, you can be victimized, yes. But the more victimized, the more healing you need, the more accountable you need to be, because the more injustice will exist when that story repeats itself over and over again in your life. And when your subconscious mind keeps trying to go into experiences that feel familiar and get into relationships that feel familiar, and then we'll continue to have these victimized experiences. So it's like happening over and over and over again. And we have to heal at the individual level first. We have to change that narrative about who we are. We have to be for a solution instead of against a problem. And we have to do some reconditioning until we can move to that next level in our lives. And from that, we can decide what we want to focus on changing in the world, right? If we've changed that inner world first, then we can go out into the world and try to reflect that change from a healthy perspective. So I really believe in personal responsibility and accountability. No, I believe it's more important the more pain or suffering or trauma we've been through. And I also believe that on the end of that, on the other side of that, the more reward there is, right? Because when you really know what it's like to be on one side of things, to be down and out, to be in pain, suffering, to go through, heavy things, and then to move, out to the other side of that. I mean, that's where like the magic is, right? And that's where you've got that empathy and compassion and care, but you also have the capacity to be resilient and show up and try to facilitate change out in the world in whatever form that might take for you. So anyways, that's my personal share for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And also, if you want to do a deep dive into this type of work and how to actually reprogram these things, you can use the 7-day free trial below to check out our emotional mastery and belief reprogramming course for 7 days for free. That will be like exactly what you need if you're looking to work through these dynamics. to reprogram these stories you have about yourself, to find out what they are as a result of trauma, and to do the work to actually move towards being for the solution in your life and make peace with the past. So we don't have that same victim dynamic showing up over and over again, which creates so much more of that injustice. So anyways, you can check it out for free for 7 days below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.